The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom and Charles. And Dom, we've got some news.
Breaking outrage, lawfare. The Democrats are weaponising the Department of Justice. Charles, they're weaponising it. They're turning into a weapon against Donald Trump just because he has allegedly committed many crimes. And they're prosecuting these crimes, allegedly, and in picking on a truth teller. And as Donald Trump puts it, the only reason they're going after him is because they'd rather go after ordinary Americans, and Donald Trump's getting in their way.
Yes.
He's the one thing standing between Americans and tyranny.
Yes.
Or is he the tyrant? It's so hard to tell sometimes. Anyway, let's run through a few of the charges against him, because there's about to be a fourth outrageous set of charges about to drop in Georgia. They've locked down the courtroom. We'll get to that in just a moment. Before we get into Donald Trump's legal woes, though, the outrage of these charges against him, we got a whole bunch of emails from you about a fairly self-indulgent episode yesterday where we pondered the state of the world, Charles, and we were a little bit down on it.
Yes. And there were lots of people who said we should be optimistic about the world.
Yeah, and another person who basically very politely told us to fuck off. We'll get to that in tomorrow's episode, but there's just so much going on in Trump land.
Yes.
We need to start with this. Where to begin, Charles? Which set of outrageous charges? Let me give you the breaking news, though, from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
They've locked down the courthouse.
They've locked it down.
The Lewis R. Slayton Courthouse has basically crash barriers in front of it.
But wouldn't a courthouse normally be fairly locked down?
Not like this. This is
when I did jury duty, we had to go through metal detectors and things.
Yeah, that's true. But Charles, what if a surge of thousands of angry patriots rightfully fighting to take back their country storm the court?
Yes.
Because they believe in the American way so much that they
No.
want to stop American courts from trying people.
No, because they are not acting on Donald Trump's instructions. but instead
That's right. Of course.
acting independently, and
Despite
it's a
despite him.
total coincidence around those things.
Yeah, you
just
gotta
like on
understand.
January the 6th, where there's no connection between Donald Trump's actions and the coup against the Capitol.
Yeah. So look, we'll go through all four indictments. Shall we start with that? Because that's the most serious
Oh,
one.
yeah,
It's the
okay,
most
yeah,
outrageous one. Where you've got a former president who had the election stolen from him, Charles, stolen.
Yes, stolen. Yeah.
And said that it was stolen, exercising his First Amendment rights. Right? Just said.
Yes.
Said to a mob, as they've
Yes.
been termed by prosecutors, or a passionate crowd of devoted Americans, as they're more correctly termed, at the Rotunda in Washington, D.C. They then went and stormed the Capitol building. I mean, some people have said that police officers, for instance, were killed, but were they really killed by the angry mob?
Yeah, well, that's clearly some sort of false flag operation.
Definitely a false flag operation.
By people who pretend to be killed.
Democrats were in there.
With all the farce of
Killing
all those details.
police
and
officers.
The funerals and everything.
And
Just
they
all
weren't really
false,
police officers. They were other Democrats. They were suicide bombers.
false flag funerals.
I think there were multiple levels of false flag. I think maybe even it was a false flag, but a false flag. So they were real police officers, but then they weren't. It's very complicated to understand.
No, but it's all true.
It is all true.
Yeah.
So,
Or is it? I mean, I think that's what they want you to believe.
the only place to know the answer to that is Truth Social.
Yes.
Truth Social's the place to go. Okay, so this is the indictment that happened, last week. Donald Trump faced many counts, 4 different charges.
Is this the one that Jack Smith is bringing?
He's brought 2 of them,
Yeah.
but this is the most recent one. This is the January the 6th one, okay? So Donald Trump's been charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, that's the tallying of the votes in the Congress, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. He wasn't there, Charles. He was back at the White House watching
Yes.
on TV and eating popcorn as they stormed the Capitol. He wasn't. Does Donald Trump strike you as the kind of person that leads a vanguard into a battle?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, didn't he ask the Secret Service to take him to the Capitol and they said, no, it's far too dangerous. You've just incited them.
Yeah, well, you can't take you there because that's where we're about to kill Mike Pence. Yeah, that's right.
Didn't he actually have an argument with them in the car? Or something?
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah,
So
right.
we'll hear that in the trial.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. I mean, who knows who to believe?
We're treading on eggshells here. We can't, imagine if the Chaser Report podcast said something that was prejudicial to the trial. It would just immediately get thrown out of
I
court.
say allegedly because do you believe, Charles, the person who gave sworn testimony to the January 6th committee? Or do you believe Donald Trump when he said he didn't do it? I believe Donald Trump.
Okay.
Yeah. And the fourth one is conspiracy against rights. So
against what?
Against the right to have your vote counted. So there's a
Right,
quaint
so-
notion in America that if you cast a vote,
Yeah.
they should actually count it in a democracy, and that's
We would
that's
never have
old
that
thinking.
We wouldn't have that in Australia.
No, that's old thinking. So
But-
that's
but-
charge 4.
So can I, I do know a little bit about this topic, and one headline that I read, I didn't read the article, but the headline said that the defence that Donald Trump's lawyers were making against those charges was that it's not actually criminal to do something unconstitutional. And that strikes me as a very legalistic idea, but isn't that actually true? Like, it's not actually, like, if something's unconstitutional, it's not criminal. Like, you need legislation, you need a law to make it criminal. So, to take away somebody's right to vote might be unconstitutional, but it's not a criminal offence.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a law that says you can't deprive someone of, for instance, the right to vote.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the Voting Rights
Yeah,
Act.
well, the vibe.
But Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to all these charges.
Okay,
So,
okay.
So I think we've got to take him at his
Okay,
word.
well then,
That should be enough in court.
Yes.
A former president saying, I'm not guilty.
Yes. Just take him at his word.
He ran the country for 4 years.
Yes.
Can we not take him at his word?
No, but if you can't take him at his word, then what does it mean about all the people who voted for him? Means
That
that
they're patriots?
That they're wrong?
I mean, there were fewer people who
No,
voted
but-
for him than voted for Clinton.
No, but counterfactually, if you take it that Donald Trump shouldn't be taking his words, then you're basically invalidating the opinion of all the people who voted for him.
Yeah, which would be a terrible shame, wouldn't it, if that would happen? Okay, these are very
I thought
serious
you were
charges.
going to be the one taking Trump's side.
I
in
am
this,
on Trump's
Dom.
side. I'm on Trump's side.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I want to be the
feel like-
seventh. I want to be the. Have I dropped the facade?
I
Have
don't want you to you're sort of not.
Look.
you sound like one of his lawyers that he sacked.
What a job that would be.
Who sort of interacts with the truth in a way.
Yeah,
that,
you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So he's pleaded not guilty, and his argument is that it was all under the First Amendment. He just said stuff. He said stuff.
Yes.
And then things happen, and just because he said the stuff
No,
doesn't mean that
exactly.
the people who went and stormed the Capitol.
Just because, this is what you get taught in first year law, isn't it? Which is, just because a theatre is on fire, you can't yell. No, hang on. If a theatre is on fire, if a theatre's not on fire, this is what you get taught.
I love that the person who didn't have the law degree is explaining this.
Well,
Go on.
this is why I'm trying to remember it, because I've got to, it's deep thinking. No, I'm pretty sure you get taught in first year law. I did enough essays of girlfriends to know my first year law, which is if a theatre is not on fire and you yell fire,
Yes.
and you cause a panic,
Yeah.
then that's illegal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, he turned up to this rally.
Said, let's go to the Capitol.
Let's go to the Capitol. They're all liars and they're evil.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on fire, and he didn't.
This is the
And-
most torturous
and he didn't-
explanation
and he-
of causality I've ever heard.
And he didn't say it's on fire, so therefore he's clear, isn't it?
So the special counsel,
That's my. I think that's a law.
the special counsel actually anticipated this brilliant legal argument from Donald Trump. He responded in exactly the way that Jack Smith expected, the prosecutor.
Oh yeah,
Because the indictment says it's not illegal to lie. It's not illegal to, even if you know that you lost the election, it's not illegal to come out and say that you won the election.
Oh, really?
It's not illegal to come out
Well,
and say
but isn't
it was
that
stolen if you thought that it wasn't.
isn't that fraudulent or something? Or?
Well, it becomes fraudulent depending on what actions you take. And so special
So
counsel's
you're allowed to
argument,
say
you can
it.
say that stuff.
but you can't then act on.
You're
it.
not allowed to actively try and stop the election
Yes.
results from
I
being
see.
tallied.
Yes,
and that's
okay.
what all of these charges are to do with. So he's anticipated what Donald Trump immediately said on Truth Social, which is, I was exercising my First Amendment rights to free speech. Because the January 6th committee wanted Jack Smith to charge Trump with treason, with insurrection. And he didn't do that.
No.
What he's done with, he's charged him only with actively trying to stop the election results being tallied. Very different from whinging.
Yes.
Actually, he claims.
But a lot more specific.
Yes, and he
Yes.
claims that Trump and a bunch of co-conspirators, 5 of 6 have already been identified who they are, had a plan
Yes.
to try and protect America from Joe Biden.
But that is demonstrably true. Like that like there's all those video, like not audio recordings of phone conversations with the people down in Georgia saying we just need 20 more votes or 20,000 more votes to go missing, or like
look,
like
this is what Jack Smith is citing as a main bit of evidence.
Incredibly true. Like that is undisputably true.
But wasn't Donald Trump exercising his First Amendment rights to call up the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and say, find me more votes? Isn't that just speech, Charles? Is that speech? That's just speech. It's not a conspiracy. It's not an act of fraud. It's just a guy asking a guy to find him a few votes, which would have overturned the election and deprived people in Georgia of their franchise. But it didn't just stop there.
That is very clever, because I've been a bit cynical about this Jack Smith guy. Because I just think generic name, clearly a dud.
It's not his real name.
Oh, really?
I'm sure it's not his real name.
Oh, I see.
I suspect it's a pseudonym.
Yes.
I thought he really is that boring. So that's
because it sounds like some sort of made up name from a novel. Like like the John Grisham presents Jack Smith, attorney at law.
Jack Ryan. Well, he probably has. There's Jack Ryan. It's pretty generic. Okay, so that was part of it. The phone call was part of it, but it went further than that because in their attempt to defend the Republic from Joe Biden, a cause for which I think you can break any law, frankly, look at what Biden's done.
Oh, yeah,
look at Bidenomics.
Yes.
Look at the jobs he's provided to people. Those people were supposed to not have jobs, so they'd be angry and re-elect Donald Trump.
Yes.
It's bullshit.
Yes.
Anyway, what they had was the so-called fake elector scheme, or what I would call the correct elector scheme, where what they tried to do in their defence of the United States of America was to come up with a separate slate of electors. Now, people might know in America, the Electoral College decides who wins a presidential race. It's kind of a quaint system. Each state actually nominates a bunch of people who go to Washington and gather in a room and vote for whoever they're meant to vote for. Right? So if you're, how they say, in New York and it's whatever electoral votes, they're actually people who then get to go and vote, right? And they're supposed to vote in accordance with whatever the voters of that state chose, right? So if New York, it's going to be Democrat automatically, whatever.
Yeah.
There's actual people who go and do that. And what Trump's people tried to do was in collusion with the Republicans in the state house in particular states, they put together alternate slates of electors. So other electors who are supposed to go to Washington and vote for Trump rather than Biden.
Really?
In states where Biden, yes.
I didn't know
In
this.
states where Biden had won. They actually nominated people, and a lot of these people are facing charges. The people who actually signed up to be the fake electors.
The fake electors?
Yeah, and this is what Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, has been alleged to have helped organise, is actually recruiting people to go and participate in this scheme. And this is why Mike Pence was so important, because Mike Pence, as vice president, it's a bit of a shit system, one might say, when the person who's ran in the election gets to certify it. But that's the system. Mike Pence, as the president of the Senate, is in charge of certifying the votes for his own election. Gosh, what might his agenda be? So the theory was Mike Pence would reject the real electors, the ones who'd been appointed.
Because Trump would be analysing it in terms of his own self-interest. He'd just go, well, Pence will do this because he'll then get to keep his job for the next 4 years.
That's right. And so Pence,
and that's what I would do.
In cahoots with people in the Senate. So in cahoots with actual Republican senators who are in on the deal as well.
Yeah, right.
We're going to, and this is not a conspiracy theory, this is all in the January 6th Commission and indeed in the indictment.
Yeah.
They were going to try and put in the bogus electors so that in the Electoral College vote it would actually go, oh, Donald Trump's won the election. Imagine the outrage if they'd actually succeeded. If they'd actually put in fake electors who were Team Trump in a state that Biden had clearly won. Anyway, so that was part of the scheme, and that's one of the things that they've been charged with.
Well, isn't the point that there wouldn't be outrage? The Democrats would have just gone, oh, well, that was the legal process.
What a pity.
Yeah, what a pity.
We've lost.
Just reminds me of when George Bush and Al Gore went and...
Well, Al Gore had to preside over, he had to certify the results himself in the election that he lost with the butterfly ballots.
Yes.
Bearing in mind that all these elections, the popular vote was won by Democrats, right? The only time in the past couple of decades the Democrats haven't won more votes in an American presidential election was Bush's second term.
Yes.
Every other time...
Yes.
The Democrats, I think since George H.W. Bush became president, the Democrats have won the popular vote every time, except for George W. Bush the second time. Anyway, so you can see why Donald Trump, having lost the election, knowing he'd lost the election. And in the indictment, there's a lot of quotes of Trump telling people that he knew he'd lost the election and so on. Why he needed to come up with this scheme to save America from Joe Biden. I mean, the ends justify the means, don't they?
Yeah,
Of course.
exactly. Yeah.
No, he actually at one point, and this is one of the new revelations in this indictment, he actually said to Mike Pence, "You're just too honest. You're just too honest," Donald Trump said to Mike Pence.
But that's free speech. You're
Yeah,
allowed to
free
tell
speech.
somebody that they're too honest.
That's right, and he was.
Yeah.
So Rudy Giuliani's on the hook. That John Eastman, who came up with the bogus elector scheme, was part of it as well. Sidney Powell, who was going on about the
I've
election
always
machines.
said that. I've actually often said that to my accountant.
You're too honest.
You're too honest.
That's right. So this is the most important one. This is the election interference charge that's there. Then you mentioned Georgia and the voters in Georgia. Well, there are charges in Georgia.
Yeah. So what's going on in Georgia? Because that's like today or something, isn't it?
I'll tell you after this.
The Chaser Report. Less news, more often.
So they've locked down the courthouse in Georgia, Fulton County Courthouse, presumably because they're going to indict Trump. The district attorney of Fulton County, Fannie Willis, has been running a bunch of probes. They impaneled a grand jury, the chair of which, I don't know if you remember that young woman, but she basically went in front of the meeting and was like, "Yeah, we're going to charge some big names, can't say who, but yeah." So it's very likely to be Donald Trump. So they've asked all the other judges to just not charge anybody for the next month or so because this is going to be so huge. So it is pretty clear that this is going to be number 4 pretty soon. I don't want to jump the gun, but the gun's basically being jumped. So that will be the 4th one.
So how does it work? Because I browsed a few law books. back in
Yeah,
my
I
day.
remember your amazing attempt to explain what happens if you yell fire in a crowded theatre. If
what
you ever
happens-
do that, Charles, if you ever yell fire in a crowded theatre, we can submit this podcast as evidence that you don't understand how that works.
But if you get charged criminally in 4 different jurisdictions, how do they share you around? Like, do you just keep on having to go, well, I'm in court on this date and then I've got to go up to
Yeah,
or
it's
is it
going to
done
be very tough.
sequentially?
It's an unusual problem. No, they all have their own timetables.
Yeah.
And this is why it's going to be so interesting because Donald Trump is
So do
is
they
going
all
to-
get on like a Zoom
They-
call?
they may have to do that.
And it's one of those hellish things where you're trying to work out between 4 different important people.
you know those
could
websites
meet.
where you
Yeah.
put different dates and you got to
Yeah,
try
Meetly
and,
or something,
Meetly,
yeah.
so they're probably do that. So Trump is going to be trying to run for re-election.
They probably run a little poll.
Yeah.
Or something.
He'll be doing rallies all over the country.
Yeah.
But he'll also have to potentially front 4 different judicial processes. When you got to hand it to him, first person ever to be charged with criminal
How
charges.
much money?
Now he's on 4.
How much money? Do you reckon he has one lawyer who's just very overworked? Or do
No,
you think
he's
he
got
is?
giant teams. And what
But
he's
who-
doing, he's raising money to fight the election.
But
and
isn't
he's
he-
spending it on his legal bills.
Isn't he notorious for stumping his lawyers and on their legal
Well, that's why they
bills?
keep resigning. So he's had trouble finding lawyers to fight this for him.
Right.
It's going to be genuinely interesting to know because
So how much would that cost? 4 separate legal cases.
I don't have the information in
You'd
front
be
of me, but it's
talking-
many millions.
It would be
it's tens of
millions. It would be millions of dollars per week.
And
I
he's
would think.
raising this stuff off, sort of broke-ass fans.
GoFundMe.
Yeah, basically. All he's done is, and the money's going straight into the lawsuits. He's not going to have much money to buy ads and stuff if this keeps up because he doesn't want to pay his own legal bills.
But isn't it like any publicity is good publicity?
That's his view. His view is every
Yeah.
indictment gets him more popularity with the
like
Republicans.
four separate. Like you basically go like what he wants to have is a legal case in every media market. And he doesn't have to
But
buy
he
every
will because this is
ad at all.
No, this is the fascinating thing. As the lawsuits
Yes.
mount, and we haven't been
it's-
through them all, his challenges fade away. Like he's getting more and more popular with Republicans. You
Yes.
have to imagine
Yes.
that the undecided voters who are actually going to decide the next presidential election are going off him even more.
Well, this is no. This is my point, which is I think the thing is that the more suits they bring against him,
The more it's lawfare.
The more evidence it is that there's a conspiracy against him.
Well, look, the House Republicans, because the Republicans control the House of Representatives, they have a commission of inquiry into the weaponisation of the Justice Department. So
Yes.
they're going to go in and prove all this.
Yes. In some ways, what it is it's an argument for not being held accountable for your actions.
Absolutely. Well, the whole thing is.
Yes.
So just to briefly cover the other 2 indictments.
Oh,
Indictment
yeah.
number 3, we've talked about them before. There's episodes about them elsewhere. Number 3 is also the one in Florida for the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Much more minor. but potentially quite a big deal. I think he's facing something like 38 or 39
And that's
counts down there.
genuinely criminal, isn't it? Because that's like you literally stole secret
Well,
documents.
there's evidence now of him
it
actively
up.
concealing things
Yeah.
and telling
always-
his underlings to delete the camera records and so on.
It's always the cover-up that gets you.
So there you go. So there's that.
Point is, never cover anything up, which I thought was always Trump's brilliance, was he never tried
It's
to
always
cover anything up.
blatant. Yeah. So this is happening in front of a Republican pro-Trump judge who previously ruled in his favour in the case. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. Then the other one is to do with the payments to Stormy Daniels. So that's going to be very tasty when that one comes up. That's Alvin Bragg, who's the district attorney for the Southern District of New York.
But haven't they? I think they've made it the most boring sort of
Porn star.
scandal involving a porn star you could ever do. Because I think that the law that they're getting him on is like campaign finance law. So it's basically saying the donation to
Stormy Daniels
was essentially a campaign expense.
Yes.
And should have been accounted for as such.
They're
And so
trying
it
to
was
do the
literally
Al Capone thing.
Yeah, it was an accounting error
You
on
should
your
have declared this as an election expense.
on your porn star payoffs.
So these are state charges. So the DA for Manhattan in New York State is running their charges. And this and the Georgia ones don't
Yeah.
go away even if Trump wins because these are state charges.
Yeah, so the point being that, you know, like our pollster friend who we know and love in the US, who's now quite a good pollster, was saying that the most likely scenario from here is that Trump just gets elected and pardons himself. But the pardons don't extend to state criminal charges. So
yeah.
they
Although
just...
it might be very hard to get him to come. I mean, who's going to make him go to Georgia to face charges in Georgia?
Yeah, and presumably the state of Georgia cannot take on the Secret
Service of America. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a fascinating business. So he's got these 4 separate sets of charges. One of the most outrageous things, Charles, and one of the things that's made Donald Trump the most upset, by the way, about these new federal charges for election interference is that he's had to have 2 judges who are women of colour.
What?
Yeah, the judge he had to face to go in and plead not guilty. Not only was she a woman of colour born in India, which is obviously very off-putting for Donald Trump and biased.
Yes.
And she should have recused herself because she wasn't a white man.
Yes.
But she called him Mr. Trump. He was absolutely livid. So the lawyers were saying President Trump this, President Trump that. And she said, Mr. Trump, you know, and swore him in and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Bias. Democrat
Yes,
bias.
Clearly. Go woke, you go broke.
And then
calling Trump... Look, I'm going to go out there on a limb, Dom, and I'm going to say calling Trump Mr. Trump rather than President Trump.
You've already decided he's guilty.
Well, it's akin to yelling fire in a crowded theatre.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. She should be charged.
Yeah.
Charge her. Actually, you know what? If Donald Trump wins the
Sedition.
election, she will be charged. I
Yeah.
guarantee that. So then, this is the really fascinating one. So, but this judge wasn't actually going to try the case. The woman who is called Tanya Chutkan. She's been randomly selected, apparently, and she's an Obama appointee, therefore already, anti-Trump. She's African American, so she'll recuse her. I mean, Trump has
yes.
claimed that she should recuse herself.
Just for being
Just for
black.
being African American. I think that's why. And for being an Obama appointee, whereas Trump appointees, of course.
For having rhythm.
That's right. She trains as a classical dancer, actually. I see here. So this woman, this is the only judge who's tried any of the January 6th insurrection participants, right? Because there have been more than 100 cases where people have been sent to jail for their role on January the 6th.
Right.
Everyone's kind of going, what about the guy who, told them to do it? She is the only judge who has given sentences that are more harsh than that demanded by prosecutors. So the prosecutors went up and said, give this person a week or whatever. And she's like, no, 30 days. This is very serious. So Donald Trump is going to have a hard time in this courtroom. So she should recuse herself.
Yes.
Because she's
Yes.
already shown that she thinks people who storm the Capitol and burn it down and kill people
Yes.
should face custodial sentences.
Yes, which is just totally biased in favour of the law.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's got to go. She's got to go. So just briefly, this has been a long one, Charles, but Donald Trump has already started to plan for his next term as president.
Yeah.
And he's put together a special unit for the Justice Department, which will go through and not only probably pardon everyone who was involved in January the 6th, every single person will be pardoned, but he's going to fire everyone who worked there, put in loyalists, pardon himself, of course, but then go after everyone involved in this. So Jack Smith might want to
Yes.
leave the country the moment before Donald Trump
if
is
that
sworn in.
is his name.
Well, that's right. Maybe that's why he's using a pseudonym.
Well, that can be the next book in the series. Jack Smith on the run.
On the run. So, but this is a very real thing. They're already planning to take names and punish anyone involved in this. I mean, I kind of want him to win based on how extraordinary it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a few days ago about, should we be optimistic or not? But, I mean, it'll be terrific television at least.
It will, and that's what Donald Trump's always delivered. Yeah. Whether it's The Apprentice or Storming the Capitol, you can't look away.
Our gear is from Road. We're part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you tomorrow.
Stay tuned for more lawfare tomorrow.